Hi, I'm Jen,
And I'm Sophia.
and you're listening to Every Rom Com, the podcast where we have fun taking romantic comedies seriously.
Today in Every Rom Com, we're headed off to a treasure hunt in Colombia.
Checking out the great chemistry between Kathleen Turner and Michael Douglas.
Enjoying the magical first and last screenplay written by Diane Thomas.
And talking about the film's actual locations in Mexico and some travel tips for its setting, Cartagena, Colombia, as we discuss my childhood favorite, Romancing the Stone. Hi, Sophia.
Hi, Jen. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well. I had a little bit of a rough health thing for a few weeks, but we're back, and so that's great. And today we're going to be talking about a movie, as I mentioned in the intro, is a childhood favorite of mine. And I just wanted to really quickly set up why this movie is so special to me, if nobody minds.
Absolutely not. I want to hear it.
So, Romancing the Stone. I saw this movie. I've told the story about seeing this movie over the years because it's one of my most favorite memories with my mother. My mother passed away when I was 20, and so you hang on to those, great early memories. And I remember it was like a rainy day, and we were like shopping for a raincoat for me and maybe for her too. And she looked up at the marquee in Lake Geneva in our little tiny town, and she kind of sighed and she said, "Oh, I'd really like to see that movie." And I'm like, "Okay, Mom, let's go to the movie." And she's like, but it's a grown-up movie. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I want to see the grown-up movie. And when I've told this story to people, I thought that I was like 8 or 9 at the time, right? But when we found out the release date for this movie, it turns out I must have been 7. And It was 1984, and I was probably in the first grade, and the movie was Romancing the Stone. And I loved this movie. Like, I think I would have loved it no matter what, but I think part of me also wanted to love it because my mom didn't think I would like it. But I loved the action and some of the scenes we're going to talk about later. I'll tell you what some of my favorites were. I liked the humor so much, and I really loved the romance. And I had little inklings of romantic feelings before. I was kind of an early bloomer when it came to romance. I had crushes like in the first grade, but like this was the first movie where I kind of got a glimpse of what like adult romance might be like. So I think it kind of formed a picture for me that would kind of like last the rest of my life about this is what love looks like between a man and a woman, for better or for worse, right? And I would just like, after we saw this movie, I would quote it all the time, like to my mom, and like just use the lines from it all the time. And I just remember it being such a special day and like a bonding opportunity with my mother. And I think one of the reasons I started this podcast actually is to appreciate this genre that I think she helped me appreciate when I was younger. Like my mom really loved literature, of course, and like high culture, but she loved romantic comedies too, and like period pieces. And she introduced me to so many beautiful women-centered films. So like this podcast in some ways is for Candace Howell, my mother, and and her memory. And this movie especially, like I just feel like I'd kind of want to dedicate to her in a way. Yeah. So, and so that's one of my first memories of seeing a movie in a theater too. Like I have this like vague memory of seeing like Empire Strikes Back and not understanding it when I was 3, but liking it anyway. And my mom told me that I made her like walk out of the black hole from Disney because I was crying too much. But other than that, this is really my first movie memory. And so I was wondering, like, Sophia, like, what are some of your early movie memories or favorite memories?
Yeah, I feel like I remember as a family going to see Basil of Baker Street, The Great Mouse Detective. And it terrifying me. Like it was scary.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Disney animation back in the 80s, was not afraid of scaring children. So I remember that. And I remember, the first kind of adventure romantic film with my mom, and I think my Aunt Diane came with as well, was Lady Hawk. Do you remember
Oh,
Lady Hawk?
I didn't see it in the theater, but I have seen it. I don't think I
Yeah.
actually saw it at the time it came out, though. So how was that for
Um,
you?
Good. I really liked it. And young as well. Like this is when I lived in Illinois before I moved to Lake Geneva. So it had to be something 7 as well, first grade, young. And I loved romance as well as a young little girl. So I thought it was great. Looking back now and having seen it as an adult, yes, I see so many problems with it as far as like what the hell was that score? This like synthesized like
Hey, man,
totally 80s
nothing wrong with that.
for the period that it's supposed to be in. Like I don't, what period? Like not quite medieval, but like it's totally inappropriate. Matthew Broderick, he's cute and whatnot, but like has a terrible accent. But I love the love story, and I love like the magic behind it. And I don't know if I want to, put this out there, but I think it should be remade. I think it would
Mm.
kind of fit this, like, I don't know, maybe Games of Thrones kind of vibe. I don't know, just like sorcerers and, magic and stuff like that. I think that part was great. And the love story part was great. But it need tweaking on the funny sidekick character and a different score. But I remember Lady Hawk with my mom. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did your mom like it too, or?
Yeah.
Cool. Nice.
Aw,
So,
fun. First film.
and
I
probably,
love
wait, you
that.
saw your first film probably in Illinois, you said then?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I was at the theater where we ended up both working
That is
eventually.
so funny, Jen. I
Yeah.
know. Oh,
Anyway.
man.
Yeah. So, before we get started with Romancing the Stone today, we want to give you a few reminders. The first section of our show will be spoiler free, and we'll give you a warning when we're about to discuss spoilers.
We'd also like to let you know that you can follow the podcast on social media. Our Facebook page is Every Rom Com podcast and blog. Our Instagram is at Every Rom Com. And our Twitter handle is Every Rom Com Pod.
And as always, you can find the podcast at everyromcom.com. Send us feedback at feedback@everyromcom.com. And if you like what you hear, please rate and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts so you never miss an episode. Now we're going to hear the very strange trailer for Romancing the Stone. Trust me, it's pretty weird.
I'm getting out of this jungle dump. I am fed up to here with this treasure hunt business. Yeah. Ira, you miserable worm, you lied to me. You said she was a city girl, out of her element. Just get her in the map and bring them back. Piece of cake. Piece of cake, my butt. What went wrong? I'll tell you what went wrong. First of all, guess who else is here? You're dead right, Solo. What? Secondly, she's got herself a partner. Like shooting holes and everything.
The minimum price for taking a stranded woman to a telephone was $400.
$375 in traveler's checks?
Got a deal.
That's just the beginning of what's going on down here. There's nothing you can say that'll make me go back into that hellhole. Don't bring that up, Ira. Ira, stop it! All right, I'll go back. But this time, you're coming with me.
Okay, I need to go off on this trailer for a minute, okay? Just
Do it.
Okay, so this is an incredibly well-written movie, but you hear almost none of the dialogue. This is incredibly good romance, but there's like nothing romantic in it. It has an amazing score. They don't use it. I'm like, what is? They're just really leaning on Danny DeVito being funny. And by the way, at the end, when he says, "You're going with me," he's beckoning at the audience. And they're leaning on the action, which, like, if you could see the trailer, you could see that there's a lot of great action sequences. But it's like, what is, you know what I mean? What movie would you think you were going to be watching if you heard this trailer? You know what I mean?
Right. I wonder if they were playing on like that Indiana Jones kind of thing and hoping to get, not put it out there as a romance because, women don't go to the movies. People
Yeah,
only
maybe.
want to see action. Like, you know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
ridiculous marketing ploy or whatever.
Yeah, because
How
we know the studio didn't have like a ton of faith in this film, so yeah.
Right.
But it's still frustrating because you can't find an updated trailer. Like I was hoping, well, maybe there'd be an updated one for like a DVD release or something, right? But nope, this is what you got. You got Danny DeVito like, having a conversation with his crime partner in the movie. So yes. So Sophia, do you have more to say about the trailer? Or would you like to introduce us to the movie?
I'll just dive right into the movie. Romancing the Stone opened on March 30th, 1984. Directed by Robert Zemeckis and written by Diane Thomas.
Romancing the Stone was a surprise hit. Like we mentioned, the studio didn't have much faith in it. It ended up being one of the top 10 grossing films of 1984. And this was a heavy-hitting film year. I mean, this is the year that Ghostbusters came out, The Karate Kid, Footloose, and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. The movie had a $10 million budget, but it ended up making over $115 million.
Wow. It won a Golden Globe for Best Comedy Musical and Kathleen Turner for Best Actress in Comedy or Musical.
And critics accused it of being derivative of Raiders of the Lost Ark, including, I think, Ebert accused it of that. But, like, actually, the screenplay was written before that movie's release. I think it was in, like, 1979 it was written, or even earlier, possibly.
Oh,
so it was kind of unfair to compare it to that, but it got kind of, like, accused of that, you know, like being, oh, it's a kind of a knockoff. Although they did say it was a good knockoff, so I guess there's that.
From AFI catalog, quote, as noted in a May 13th, 1984 LA Times article, Douglas had trouble casting a male lead for the character Jack Colton. Actors who read for the script were displeased that the female role was central to the narrative and declined to play a secondary character, provoking Douglas to cast himself in the part, end quote.
And thank God that he was cast himself in the part, because like some of the people they considered were like Sylvester Stallone, and like, no. I'm
Totally
sorry.
no. Totally no.
He is not what I look to when I see romance.
Yeah. I mean, come on. He loves Adrian, though, and Rocky, right? Like,
I guess, but like when you want to watch a romance, do you watch Rocky though? I don't know. And I guess, you know, Douglas wasn't necessarily thought of in that way either, but like he just has like he has more of like a, I don't know what it is, but he's more sensitive seeming, I guess, even if he's kind of playing a scoundrel.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And it was a very difficult shoot, Romancing the Stone. It was kind of plagued by rain and mud, alligators and or crocodiles. So like in the movie's credits, it says something about alligators, but then I've heard other people involved with the film referring to them as crocodiles, but there are one or the other or both in this movie. So they wired these alligators' mouths shut to be able to film with them. Yeah. But one of the alligators got loose and its wire came off. And so one of the trainers involved with the picture, Umberto Gurza, apparently almost lost a hand to an alligator as he was trying to recapture him, but he was saved by his watch. So lucky man in some ways, unlucky in others. And Kathleen Turner also sustained kind of minor injuries on the set, but you know, not so minor that she didn't have to have some plastic surgery on her leg because it had been scraped so badly. So it was no joke. They were like, and they encountered like sort of minor mudslides at times too. So yeah, pretty challenging.
That sounds awful. There is a sequel, Jewel of the Nile, which we'll talk about later, but it didn't do as well. So plans for a third movie were scrapped.
Yeah, I have a lot to say about that. Did you end up watching it by any chance, the sequel, or am I the only one who gets to?
I think you're the only one. I mean,
okay. Okay, so the basic premise of this movie, which you would never be able to figure out from its trailer. So Joan Wilder is the main character, played by Kathleen Turner. She's a successful romance novelist who lives in New York, and she's forced to go to Cartagena, Colombia to rescue her sister from kidnappers who want to get their hands on a treasure map that Joan has been mailed by her sister's husband. Her sister's husband also happens to have been recently murdered. And another man, Zolo, he's apart from these kidnappers. He's more dangerous, and he's also after the same map. And once Joan gets to Colombia, he tricks her into taking a bus which sends her into the middle of the jungle instead of to Cartagena. And that bus crashes, and Zolo gets Joan alone and attempts to rob her at gunpoint, but his attempt is thwarted when Jack Colton, played by Michael Douglas, encounters them and has a gunfight with him. And in the meantime, his occupation is a bird catcher. Like, he sells exotic birds, and his whole livelihood has just been destroyed by the same bus crash. And Jack agrees to guide Joan to Cartagena in exchange for payment, but they quickly run into danger and they gradually develop a mutual attraction. So that's what we'll tell you for now. There's a lot more to the story. So, Sophia, what do you think of this film? Like, did you see it when it first came out or later, or like?
I saw it later at some point, and I guess I thought it was okay, but it hasn't been one of the go-to films that I've watched over and over again.
Okay.
So I watched it recently for the podcast, and I really did enjoy it. There's a lot of scenes where I'm like, oh, that's so silly, but I totally love it. I do remember the opening and her and Joan writing her story, and that has stayed with me. And I really enjoyed that opening scene. My general opinion is that it's a good flick, and I enjoy it.
And so I think we kind of already know what my opinion of the movie is, like, in terms of like, well, at least when I was younger. So I loved it when I was younger, and it was a go-to for me. I would watch it over the years, like probably at least once a year, you know. I think over the last few years, I haven't watched it as frequently because partly because there's just so much content that's always new available all the time, right? I still love this movie, but I think a little less than I did when I was younger, and that's okay. Like, I still think it's really solid. I would still totally recommend it to people who haven't seen it. I always tell people who haven't seen a lot of 80s movies that it's one of the 80s movies you shouldn't miss, you know. I think it really is a hallmark of 80s storytelling style. Like action and romance and comedy all together and just like told very tightly, you know, and very earnestly, not cynically. You know what I mean? It's just got that 80s feel to it that's so great without too much of that, like, you know, synthesizer stuff. Although people might argue with me about how good Alan Silvestri's score really is. We'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, anyway, I still love it, and I still would totally recommend it, especially to people who haven't seen it. But it's hard to like keep the same ardor for a movie that you had when you were 7 years old or 14. So yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So we'll talk about the cast and crew, and there's some very fascinating cast and crew members on this film.
Yeah. Firstly, the writer, Diane Thomas. I love this bit of fact about her. She was working as a waitress while she was writing Romancing the Stone. And I just get this picture of, you know, she had a dream and she was working her shifts and collecting her tips, but she was writing this story that makes me happy.
Yeah.
She was an unknown screenwriter, but she sold Romancing the Stone for $250,000 to Michael Douglas and Columbia Pictures, though it was eventually made by 20th Century Fox. So, you know, I think she had been passing it around, but Douglas, he bought it. And I love that he saw its potential and took a chance on it.
Yeah, and he paid her a lot, even like he made a point of paying her a lot, even though she was a first-time screenwriter. He was like, if the story's good, you know, we'll pay for it.
Yeah, I love that. So she did some script doctoring to the Jewel of the Nile, the sequel, but she was busy doing other projects at the time, and so it was written by two men, Mark Rosenthal and Lawrence Kohner. Sadly, and very tragically, she died at the age of 39 in a car accident in 1985. Apparently, Michael Douglas had bought her the Porsche as a gift, and her boyfriend was driving it when they had an accident. So that's so sad.
Yeah.
At the time of her death, she was working on Always and a third Indiana Jones movie with a different plot line than The Last Crusade with Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, like I wonder what her Indiana Jones movie would have been like, although I really love The Last Crusade. So, but yeah, it's really sad that she died without being able to, you know, write more scripts because this is such a good script. It's so tight and like the dialogue is so good and punchy. So
the director, Robert Zemeckis, was known for his special effects ingenuity, and he is known as a writer, director, producer. Michael Douglas wanted him to direct the movie based on his film Used Cars. Romancing the Stone was his first big hit after 2 major box office bombs. So he himself had a lot riding on this film.
Mm.
He was fired from Cocoon by the studio when they saw Romancing the Stone because they were sure it was going to fail. How about that?
Yeah.
But then later on, he's known for the Back to the Future trilogy, also as a writer. Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Forrest Gump, Contact, Castaway, Polar Express, also as the writer. A Christmas Carol, also the writer. Flight, Welcome to Marwen, also writer. And The Witches, also the writer. So
Yeah.
screw you, Cocoon.
Big mistake. Huge.
Huge. And in production right now is Pinocchio, like live action Pinocchio starring Tom Hanks, whom he's worked with several times before, and The King starring Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah, big talent. And
Yes.
it's their first big breakout of a major director. And it could have been the first big breakout of a major writer had she not passed. So, yeah. Yeah, here's to you, Diane Thomas. Yeah. Okay, any more about Zemeckis or?
I think he speaks for himself.
Okay. And so now on to some of the cast members. So first, Kathleen Turner plays Joan Wilder, the lead character. And she started acting on a soap opera called The Doctors in 1978 and 1979. She only had 2 movie credits before Romancing the Stone. So there was Body Heat, which is, of course, a famous movie also, which was a noir romance with William Hurt. And I saw that movie once, and I thought it was pretty good, but it wasn't something I needed to watch again. But she was damn hot in that movie. And she didn't want to be typecast, though, as kind of the femme fatale or the hot lady. So she then went to work with Steve Martin on The Man with Two Brains, a comedy. I have not seen that one, though. And then so Romancing the Stone was her 3rd film in 1984. And then she followed up with the sequel, The Jewel of the Nile, in 1985. And as we previously mentioned, she won a Golden Globe for Romancing the Stone. And then she's gone on to have a pretty good career. She's also been in Prizzi's Honor, which she also won a Golden Globe for. Peggy Sue Got Married, which she was nominated for Best Actress Oscar. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? She was the voice of Jessica Rabbit. And then Michael Douglas, and Danny DeVito all teamed up in 1989 for The War of the Roses, where Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner play a couple who are not happy with each other, and I think in the process of getting a divorce. Mm-hmm. And I also really like her in John Waters' Serial Mom, which is kind of a cool movie. In the 90s, she developed rheumatoid arthritis, and she also had a drinking problem related to trying to ease her pain from that disease. So she wasn't working quite as much, but she did continue to do some work and in smaller roles or lesser known shows and movies. And she's also done stage work. She had a Tony-nominated performance in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and she also appeared in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. And then her co-star ended up being Michael Douglas, the producer, because as we said before, other actors didn't want to be second fiddle, which is ridiculous, in my opinion.
Yeah.
We all know, I think most people know Michael Douglas is the son of the famous actor Kirk Douglas, and his mother is British actress Diana Dill. Michael Douglas did a bunch of small roles before getting his acting break, and it was in a TV show called The Streets of San Francisco from 72 to 76. And he was also doing work as a producer while he acted. So he was one of the producers of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and so he ended up with an Oscar for Best Picture for that. Mm-hmm. And he has 30 production credits in general. Just like Kathleen Turner, he reprised his role as Jack Colton for The Jewel of the Nile, but he is also known for many, many movies, which many of you have probably seen. Fatal Attraction, Wall Street, for which he won Best Actor Oscar and a Golden Globe. The War of the Roses, Basic Instinct, The Game, Wonder Boys, and he won a Golden Globe for playing Liberace in Behind the Candelabra fairly recently. And he has done some other romantic and rom-com work too. So one thing a lot of people haven't seen is called Shining Through, which is kind of a World War II drama romance. Have you ever seen that one?
No.
It's pretty good with Melanie Griffith. I like that one. It's a little cheesy, but it's a romance. Uh-huh. He was been in The American President. He was kind of a bad influence in Ghosts of Girlfriends Past with Matthew McConaughey. And recently he was in And So It Goes with Diane Keaton, which I watched and I was not a big fan of, to be honest. But yeah. And a lot of younger people will now know him from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He is in the Ant-Man movies as Dr. Hank Pym, and he's currently filming Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantum Mania, which I always look for. I know I talk about Marvel movies all the time, but like I get excited. I get pumped every time I see the title of a Marvel movie. So,
That's awesome.
And then, of course, he's also been in other work, including The Kaminsky Method from 2018 to 2021, and he won a Golden Globe for that in 2019. And on that show, he brought in Danny DeVito and Kathleen Turner to play roles. And Kathleen Turner shows up as one of his ex-wives, and she's working in Colombia, so it's kind of a cheeky joke.
That's fantastic. Next, we have Danny DeVito as Ralph. So it turns out Danny DeVito and Michael Douglas were roommates in New York, and they're clearly still great friends. And he was in Douglas's produced One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in 1975, and his big break came in Taxi, playing Louis De Palma, and that ran from 1978 to 1983. And my husband loves Taxi, and
That's
we
funny.
watched
I've never
that
seen it.
a lot.
Huh.
So Danny DeVito reprised his role as Ralph in The Jewel of the Nile. Again, as we've said, he was in The War of the Roses. He's also known for Throw Mama from the Train, which he also directed in 1987. Twins, we watched that one all the time. It's with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Batman Returns, he played the Penguin brilliantly. He was so disgusting. It was great.
So creepy.
Yeah. And Matilda in 1996, which I believe he directed as well. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia from 2006 to 2021, and a lot of other work, 139 acting credits and 23 directing credits.
Wow.
And as a producer, he produced Reality Bites, Pulp Fiction, Get Shorty, Gattaca, Out of Sight, Man on the Moon, and Aaron Brockovich.
Jeesh. Wow.
Yeah.
Well done, Danny DeVito.
Yeah.
Okay, so a creator that I wasn't sure if I was going to put on it first, but I decided to because he is very important, is Alan Silvestri, who did the music for Romancing the Stone. And man, I know that the music for Romancing the Stone is pretty kind of cheesy sounding and 80s sounding, but it is probably the best cheesy 80s sounding music that exists. Okay, it's a very memorable score in my opinion. Like, I will find myself humming it from time to time. I've realized I can hum the entire end credits if I want to. It's like ingrained in me. Wow. I don't know. Am I crazy? Do you like the score, or did you not find the score to be good?
I didn't notice it at all. It was neither here nor there for me. So it didn't stand out as like terribly like off-putting. None of that. Like, and I don't remember it at all. So I think that that's okay when it's like that.
So one of the reasons I decided to include Alan Silvestri was because he is like a pretty significant composer, actually, of film music. So Romancing the Stone was actually his big break. Before that, he'd only done some like TV work, like for Chips and Starsky and Hutch and some smaller movies. But he's worked with Zemeckis a number of other times, including Back to the Future movies, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Forrest Gump, Castaway, and others. And he's also known for The Bodyguard, which I recommended on Now Streaming recently.
Yeah.
Practical Magic, Serendipity, and he's done work in the MCU also, Captain America, the First Avenger, The Avengers, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, and he has 136 composer credits on IMDb. So he's a significant, composer, and it all came out of, just like Zemeckis, it came out of this one wonderful hit movie.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty wild, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we're going to do some minor actors too. Well, not minor, but just like not as famous as Douglas, Turner, and DeVito. So Alfonso Arau plays Juan. And Alfonso Arau is a Mexican actor and a director. He's born in 1932, still alive today. His first acting credit is in 1954, and he still appears to be working, in fact. So he had worked with Zemeckis on Used Cars in 1980, but he'd also done a lot of other work, a lot of it in Spanish language work. And a lot of people might recognize him as El Guapo in Three Amigos, which he did in 1986. He is more than famous. And he recently also did voice work as Papa Julio in Coco in 2017. And he's also a director. I was so glad that I checked, his other, jobs,
Yeah.
because he directed, among other things, like Water for Chocolate and A Walk in the Clouds. And 13 directing credits total, and he has 8 writing credits.
Wow.
So he is pretty awesome.
I
Pretty
love
awesome.
like Water for Chocolate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've seen A Walk in the Clouds.
Yeah.
I have mixed feelings about that one, but it doesn't matter. Like, whoa. Nice.
Yeah. And I haven't seen, as far as I know, his Spanish language work. So maybe he's doing even better work, in his native language. I don't know.
So Manuel Ojeda plays Zolo. He's a very prolific Mexican actor, 266 acting credits. He's appeared in many telenovelas in addition to film roles, and he's still acting today. Oddly, there was another American film called Green Ice, which was also had a major plot line involving an emerald. So he's being typecast as films with emeralds in them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was trying to look into him more and find out if he's usually a villain or not. And I did find some evidence of that. Like he's been awarded Best Villain awards for different things.
Okay.
But maybe he's played other roles too. Like there wasn't a lot of English language biographical information available about this man, but he's apparently very famous in Mexico.
Next, we have Holland Taylor. She plays Gloria, who is Joan's, publisher / editor. And friend.
Yeah.
And friend. She was born in 1943. Her first acting credit was in 1967 at 24 years old, and she has 121 acting credits to her name. She reprises her role briefly as Gloria in the Jewel of the Nile. And she's definitely done a lot of supporting roles in many rom-coms. She's in Legally Blonde, The Wedding Date, To All the Boys, P.S. I Still Love You, Keeping the Faith, She's Having a Baby. And in 2020, she appeared in Hollywood on Netflix, Bill and Ted Face the Music, and The Stand-In. So
I've only seen one of those. I saw Hollywood, which was really good, I thought, or at least fun, like
yeah.
Yeah, but I haven't seen the others yet. Have you seen any of those?
No, I want to see Bill and Ted though.
Yeah, I will eventually. Yeah, when I have time to rewatch Bogus Journey.
Yes. Funny.
So another character in the film is Joan's sister, Elaine, and she is played by Mary Ellen Trainor. And I ran into this information almost by accident. I found out that she was married to Robert Zemeckis at the time Romancing the Stone was made. So they were married from 1980 to 2000 and had a son, Alexander. And Romancing the Stone was her first movie, but she is an able actor. She also had small roles in some other Zemeckis films, including Back to the Future 2, Death Becomes Her, and Forrest Gump. And she played Mrs. Walsh in The Goonies, which I was like, oh, hey, that's where I recognized her from. And she's continued to work through 2007, but sadly, she died of cancer in 2015. Yeah, she had a total of 47 acting credits, so she wasn't very prolific, but she certainly appeared in some great films over the years.
Okay. And then Zack Norman plays Ira, who is Ralph's cousin and the boss of this whole kidnapping, trying to get the map thing back. He initially seems like his credits are very few, and he didn't reprise his role in The Jewel of the Nile. He's got about 39 acting credits to his name. But according to Wikipedia, he also goes by Howard Zucker and produces and finances movies under that name, including Hearts and Minds in 1974, which won an Academy Award for Best Documentary, and many other movies. However, we can't seem to find any info under Howard Zucker page on IMDb. So it's a mystery.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
I actually watched Hearts and Minds in college. It's a very good Vietnam documentary. So, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, even if you look on the Hearts and Minds page on IMDb, I can't actually find his information. So I think Wikipedia says the information came from a book. But yeah, short of reading that book to verify, I don't know. So now we're going to talk about a number of things all lumped together, as we've been wont to do on the travel series. We're going to talk about the different scenes in the movie, and we'll tell you when we get to a spoiler section. We won't spoil the whole plot. And we'll also give you some of the locations and fun facts in our commentary. So let's begin the movie. So this movie opens very strangely. Like, I think when I first saw it in the theater, my mom and I, like, well, I wasn't expecting much, but like, I certainly wasn't expecting this like Western scene with like this woman in this like skimpy dress, and like you can kind of see her breast through it. And there's a weird cowboy guy holding her up at gunpoint. And like, I was like, this isn't the actors on the poster. You know what I mean? So it was kind of shocking. It's a very interesting way to open a movie. And you soon find out that you are in a romance novel plot that is being narrated by Kathleen Turner. And in this romance novel story, which does have echoes later in the movie, a character named Grogan has come to steal money and presumably kill or rape Angelina, the female character. And she successfully evades his attack by throwing a knife at him and killing him. And it has this great line. This is so cheesy. So it goes, "That was the end of Grogan, the man who killed my father, raped and murdered my sister, burned my ranch, shot my dog, and stole my Bible."
That was awesome.
And I remember my mom laughing at that, and the theater people laughing. Like, people were laughing so hard at that.
Like, it's fantastic.
And stole my Bible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then this like music comes up, which Alan Silvestri did not do. I recently found out that the music in that scene is from Once Upon a Time in the West, which is this old 1950s movie, like about this like mythological, like, you know, how white people, you know, conquered the West. Oh my God. Like, they have like a spoiler warning, or like, no, they have like a problematic warning on top of Gone with the Wind, but they didn't put one on top of this movie. And if they're going to do it, they should do it for Once Upon a Time in the West. But I was so excited though to hear that music, and I was like, oh my God, that's where the Romancing the Stone music came from. I was nerding out. Anyway, sorry.
No, I love that.
And so with this swelling music, Angelina rides off on a horse, maybe Grogan's horse, I don't know. And Grogan's brothers have shown up to like menace her. But then Jesse, this shadowy character in a cowboy hat, appears on the hillside, and he shoots Grogan's brothers very quickly. And he rides down to Angelina, and they have this like perfect reunion. And like Kathleen Turner is narrating, "My heart leapt as I watched him ride near. I could barely wait to feel the warmth of his touch. At the moment that his lips met mine, I knew that we would never again be apart. I knew then that we would spend the rest of our lives together. Forever." And it's so extra. It's so over the top. And before we talk about the transition to the next scene in romance novels in general, I just want to note that this scene was apparently filmed in St. George, Utah. So done my due diligence there. So Sophia, have you read any of these like Western style romance novels? I can't say that I have. Or does this remind you of any romance novels you have read? Or
I mean, sort of. You know, there's a history and a journey of romance novels. Like in '84, I would say that this is what they sound like. Now in the, you know, 2000s, there's definitely a different tone and a different vibe. And yet still following, you know, some of those tropes of like alpha male. I've read some that have like kind of a cowboy theme, but nothing to this degree. This is fantastic. This is old school, and we couldn't have what we have now without this as a foundation.
yeah.
It's like a country song, right? You know, he burned my ranch, shot my dog, and stole my Bible. Oh man, that's so funny.
And then do you want to talk about this transition? Because this transition is fantastic. Like, as she's like finishing this narration, we go to the next scene that you like were fond of.
I do. I love this scene, and I've remembered it forever. Where we find her at her desk sobbing and just elated at the end of this story that she's written, and she just loves it. And she's kind of a mess. I think she's still in her nightgown, her hair's back in a messy pony. She's wearing these headphones, which are fantastic and huge. And you know, she gets up to, you know, get something to drink, and there are no more like tissues or paper towel in her house because she's just been too busy working. And they're not Post-it notes, but they're little pieces of paper taped up all over the place. I'm like, were there no Post-its back then? I don't remember. Like, buy more tissues and things like that, which I think are just great little classic writery artist person who's been so in their zone that they haven't had time to get more Kleenex.
Can I talk about the cat?
Do it. Do it.
So here we have a rom-com cat. I freaking love rom-com cats. So like initially she says, I finished, ready to celebrate, sweetheart. And you think, oh, maybe she's got a significant other. But no, it's her cat. And the cat comes in the door. And it's such a cool reveal that she's alone with her cat. And her cat's named Romeo. And it's this cute little white cat with like orange like markings on it. And I love the way the cat's portrayed in the movie. I might talk about that more later. And she gives her cat like this like fancy feast or whatever with like a sprig of parsley on it. And she has
no food in her fridge, but a sprig of parsley.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. I didn't even notice that
hardly
part.
any food. There's like bottles of something in there. I don't even know what, but no food.
Oh, my cat came in here while I was talking about the cat. How funny is that? Okay. She's toasting her cat, and then she toasts Jesse on a book cover. She says, "Here's looking at you, Jesse, whoever you are." And then she randomly throws dishes into her very small fireplace. I don't know why.
I love that. I mean, Greeks do that at weddings and christenings and parties and whatever. You break the dishes, man, and you're just like, "Oppa!" It's, I don't know, a thing of celebration. They're breaking dishes. So when she throws them into this fireplace, it's I was like, yes, that's right. I don't know. I love it. I love that whole scene. I think it's just
me too.
Spot on. And
I love the transition. I love the transition between the Western scene and that scene, and how you see like this romantic, glamorous vision that she's creating for other people while she's sitting there in the flannel nightgown. It's just so great because it's really a good commentary on the contrast between real life and romance. Without having to hit you over the head with that, but it's right there in your face already.
Right.
So like also I wanted to say that when I saw this movie, it had a huge effect on me in that I wanted to be a writer in part because of this movie. And like, I think this scene had something to do with it, but certainly later scenes too. But like, I really admired her. It didn't seem sad that she's hanging out with her cat. To me, it seemed great. So I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't think it was sad either.
But it might sound sad to somebody if you said, oh, she's a lonely person with her cat. But no, she seems like she's happy and like fulfilled in her work.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of the setup of like not having Kleenex and no food in the fridge is just showing what someone who's working from home looks like when they're working, and anyway.
So then the next scene we just see this mysterious black-gloved, black-hatted, brown-coated guy who later turns out to be Zolo, and he's at a payphone. 1980s, yay! And he calls Joan, but then hangs up when she answers the phone. And I want to say shout out to landlines, because like you couldn't even have that plat device anymore. Like now, like how's the bad guy going to know whether you're home or not? I mean, come on.
Yeah. That
I guess you could like
device.
stalk you. I guess you could stalk you on Facebook or Instagram if you're big on doing check-ins, but yeah.
There you go. Yeah, so Joan rushes off to meet Gloria, her publisher/editor. I think those are two different jobs. I don't know why she's this. And I think they're both very big jobs. Like, no one person should do both.
Gloria's a very accomplished woman, Sophia.
Yeah, okay, there you go. So Joan rushes up to meet Gloria, her publisher/editor, and her neighbor, Mrs. Irwin, gives her a large envelope from her brother-in-law, Eduardo, in Colombia.
Yeah. We don't know what it is yet.
We don't know what it is. There's a salesman who sells stuffed monkeys outside, on her block, just selling these, one of those street vendors. And he's like, come on, buy a stuffed monkey. It's great. While she's like, no, thanks.
Does this happen in New York anymore? Did it ever happen? Do you know? Like, were there just random stuffed monkey salesmen or like...
I have never seen a stuffed monkey vendor. I do see street vendors, selling stuff, but nobody's like up in your face. I think they would get punched if that were.
I wonder if it was different in the 80s though, like, because it just seems like it's trying to be authentic in some way, but it's odd.
Yeah. But Zolo is watching her and enters her building. And he kills the superintendent, right?
Yeah, just like that. There's a death right there.
Terrible.
But it's great plotting because like already you know that this guy is fucking seriously dangerous and like right away.
Yeah.
You already have like what's going on here?
Yeah.
Okay, and then I love this next scene, and it's also super weird. When she meets Gloria, she delivers the manuscript, and then Gloria's trying to get her to like be interested in men. They're at this bar, and she like you see this series of men, and I want to deliver Gloria's little monologue here, if you don't mind.
Do it.
So this is her assessment of the men: wimp, wimp, loser, loser, major loser, too angry, too vague, too desperate, God, too happy. Ooh, look at this guy, Mr. Mondo Dismo. I actually used to date him. Total sleaze bucket. Wait a minute. Hold everything. Get a load of this character. What about him? Oh, do you want to do Joan's part?
Sure. No, he's just not.
Who? Jesse?
Maybe it's silly, but I know that there is somebody out there for me.
Yeah. And then I think she's like, where? And she's like, certainly not here. I love that scene, even though like the guys that like Gloria even likes is just so there was one guy that she likes, and I'm like, he looks exactly like the sleaze bucket guy to me.
You know.
Like, and they're all pretty bad. I don't know. I think I would have gone with one of the losers, actually. One of the two losers. Not the major loser, but yeah.
That's
and did you evaluate these guys at all? Or were you
I didn't. I kind of felt bad about this scene. I'm like, why? You're just judging these people. What are you doing? You know?
But that's what people do on the internet now. They just go on Tinder and they're like left, right. You know?
Well, isn't that what Facebook originally was?
I don't know. Facebook, the whole like on the like, social network movie
rating
story.
people's So bad.
It's a human, you know. Yeah.
I know we do it.
I haven't done it a ton. Like I'm more like apt to be like, oh, look at that, he's pretty hot or something. I'm more like to do that than to be like, oh no.
Right. Yeah.
But I think it's very human. I thought it was funny.
Yes, of course.
And then we got an exposition dump in this scene too, but it doesn't feel like an exposition dump. I only noticed it when I was really evaluating it for the podcast. Joan like gives Gloria the manuscript, and then Gloria very naturally, because they're friends, asks about how her sister's doing, because her sister Elaine, her husband has recently been murdered. Her husband Eduardo has been murdered. And then Joan's like, I just got this strange package from Eduardo in the mail. And apparently he hasn't just been murdered, but like his body had been like dismembered. So you're like, so you just saw the one guy murder the superintendent, and now you find out the husband's murdered, and you're like, oh.
Yeah. And then we cut to Elaine leaving her house in a hurry, and she gets knocked unconscious and kidnapped by a kid playing in the street who brings her to the kidnappers, Ralph and Ira. The way that where they're sitting, this platform thing that has a grate that looks down into these crocodile alligator things, and one of them says, "Look at these snappers, will ya?"
It's Ira. And I used to quote that all the time. I thought it was the funniest thing. When you're a kid, that's the funniest line. You're like, look at those snappers, will ya?
That's hilarious.
Just like there'd be no reason to say it. I would just say it because that's what kids do.
Oh, that is funny. Yes,
and
you're right.
And so we've got this movie now where we've set up that there's like two different villain segments. There's the Zolo guy with his like knife and killing the superintendent, and then there's these clowns. Basically, they're the comic relief villains.
They are. Oh, funny. So after Elaine gets kidnapped and brought to Ira and Ralph, Joan returns home to find her house completely trashed. It's and audiences know that it's Zolo. She doesn't know, obviously, but you get one of those. She's creeping through her apartment, just stunned, and then the cat pounces out and it scares the crap out of you, and you're just.
Yeah, and then you get a landline scare directly after that, like where the phone rings, and I remember that when you were young, right? Do you remember it being young and like scared of something at night, and then the phone rings and you're like, ah,
yeah.
That was like a thing.
That's funny. And the call is from Elaine, her sister, who is, obviously in trouble, and she's asking Joan to bring the map to her in Colombia.
Yeah.
Ah.
And then we don't waste a lot of time dilly-dallying, and clearly
No.
she didn't have much time to pack, as we'll find out later in the movie.
Yeah.
Because the next scene is like her like ready to leave for Colombia. She's got Romeo in a little case, handing him off to Gloria. I love that they deal with who is cat sitting in this movie. I love that.
Yeah.
And Gloria's trying to talk her out of it, basically helping to establish Joan's character by being like, hey, you get bus sick, train sick, plane sick. You practically puke riding on the elevator at Bloomingdale's.
Yeah.
She's basically showing you are not prepared for, this trip. And it's a great way of doing that. I just love this economy of plotting. And I love Gloria as the best friend character. I think she's such a good best friend and colleague to Joan.
Yeah, she really is. But Joan goes. She does it. She's got to save her sister. So there's a plane flight, and then we land at a completely chaotic airport, complete with pigs. So Ralph is waiting for her at the airport, and he's trying to find her. And actually, he's holding her book, one of her romance novels, because there are pictures on the back.
Yeah.
And Joan is trying to use her phrase book to get on the right bus. And Zolo is there, and he intercepts and he lies to her about which bus to take. And she gets on the wrong bus, and Ralph sees her going on the wrong bus, but it's too late. And so instead of going to a nice little town, she arrives in the jungle.
Yeah, and like this scene, oh my God, this scene begins Ralph's like parade of bad language speaking. Because he's like, the Ario Arribo aquí. And I'm like, what? I mean, aquí is like sort of Spanish, but yeah, no, sorry. Not working. And at least Joan was actually speaking pretty creditable. She was doing pretty well with her phrase book. But then, like, I don't know, when you're in a foreign country, just like beware of people sometimes, like she's just the minute a person speaks English to her, she's like, oh yeah, sure. But like, trust your instincts too. And like, trust yourself to use your phrase book and talk to the bus driver. That's all I'm saying.
I appreciate that. Is a very good lesson, a very good point. And thank you. You're right.
So yeah, as Sophia said, we now find the bus is in the jungle, and Kathleen Turner Joan is asleep. And Helen Silvestri's music transition here is so good. I thought, dun, 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 dun. I don't know, I loved it. Okay, I'm sorry. And just to show that you're really in the jungle, they show an obligatory monkey. And then I really want to talk about Joan causes this bus crash, okay? Like this bus would not have crashed except for her, because she wakes up and she like needs to know like where they're going. She's like saying, excuse me, to the bus driver, and he's like looking back at her, and she's like, when is the bus getting to Cartagena? Is this the bus to Cartagena? And then she's like, I need to get to Cartagena. Ah! And that's when the bus crashes into, we later find out, Jack's truck. And okay, so that's like one thing. She causes this bus crash. The other thing is, what was Zolo's plan? Okay. Like, because the bus crash was a convenient way for her to a convenient way for him to get her alone. But like, what if they'd actually arrived at the place they were going? What was his plan? Like, was it like just that his stronghold was there or something? Like, I don't know. Like, do you have any theories on this?
I mean, thinking this through. So they wind up in some smaller town in the jungle. Like these people obviously live around here, right? And she's completely alone. And then he holds a gun to her. Yeah, good point.
I just don't know like what his plan was all along. Why didn't he just like knife her at the airport? Like he doesn't seem to care about knifing people.
Right. Would anybody have cared there? Right.
I don't know. Like, would anyone have noticed is more like, because they make
does he know for sure that she has the map at this point? Like,
maybe not. Maybe he doesn't know for sure.
Maybe that's it. He needs to find out.
But anyway, I did find this to be one plot hole in the movie. It's like this very convenient bus crash was not necessarily going to happen in the first place.
Right.
Okay.
But after the crash, everyone else follows the bus driver. But Joan stays because Zolo says another bus will come. And here's where we see how ill-prepared Joan is with clothes and luggage.
Yeah, she's got this big down Jack coat still on, right? And a dress and like high heels. And her luggage is like not the kind, she doesn't have like a backpack. She's got like this hefty, it doesn't even have wheels, right?
I don't think so. Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. What were people thinking? And again, she just listens to Zolo because he's speaking English, but he does pull a gun on her, holds her up. But this is when we see a silhouetted man at the top of a hill wearing almost like a cowboy hat.
Yeah.
And it's Jack, but we have a Jesse vibe here.
Yeah.
And Zolo shoots at him, and then Jack whips out his shotgun and just and there's this big gunfight. Joan hides under the bus, so she doesn't get shot in any way. And then Zolo runs off, right?
Yeah. So after this gunfight, Jack goes and looks at his truck first, and he notices that like all his birds are gone. Like we find out that he's an exotic bird salesperson, or he catches the birds and then sells them. And like that's his whole livelihood. And so his whole livelihood's basically gone. And then he finds Joan like hanging out under the bus. And then Joan basically begs him to help her. And we have something I'm going to show a clip of, which is them bargaining, for Joan trying to bargain with Jack to help her. So we'll play this little clip.
Please, I need your help.
That's my new career.
It's very...
Lady. Half a year's work just flew south for the winter, all right? My Jeep is totaled. In about 5 minutes, everything I own in the world is going to be wet. So can you lighten up, please? I really don't have the time.
I'll pay you. You don't understand. It's a matter of life and death. If I don't get to my...
How much?
$50?
Oh, shit.
Well, you said you just lost everything you owned.
Not my sense of humor.
Well, I'll pay you $100. $200.
I'll do it. For $5.
What? I'll pay you $250.
Now, I ain't cheap, but I can be had. My minimum price for taking a stranded woman to a telephone is $400.
Will you take $375 in traveler's checks?
American Express?
Of course.
Got a deal.
Good.
I love that part. That pleasantly surprised me.
Yeah.
I looked it up. I'm like, was someone trying to compete in traveler's checks with American Express, where because it was so tight, it was so bam, bam, bam. Apparently, I found a quote that it was an inside joke for something else. I didn't put it in. Yeah, but my husband worked at American Express for a long time.
Oh, okay.
And so
it was funny anyway. Like everyone in the theater laughed. Because I think there were a lot of ads for American Express in the 80s too. Like it was like,
Yeah.
And here we have this trope of, paying somebody to help you, which we previously talked about in Leap Year in reference to this even. So,
yeah.
And I know I've seen this trope elsewhere, especially it's a trope in romance novels. So.
Yeah. So they get going, and then we get to Ralph is in his car, but it gets intercepted by Zolo. So, what kind of he shows a badge?
Yeah, so right. I did a little research on Colombia in the 80s, and there were a lot of different groups. I didn't do enough research to really understand this, but apparently there were corrupt police and also corrupt paramilitary organizations, and some people were part of both. And so there's a lot of competing organizations in Colombia at the time. It seems like Zolo is supposed to be part of a corrupt or separate paramilitary organization.
Yes,
with a lot of power. Yeah, and so he commandeers Ralph's ridiculous little car.
Yeah, and he pretends not to speak English.
Ralph does.
Ralph does.
Yeah,
it's obvious he's an American. He's
Odio Americanos. I hate Americanos. I spit them. Pew, or something, right?
And he's trying to hold his hand up to his face to hide his face.
Because he's a criminal. Yeah, so he doesn't want to be. It's a funny scene.
And Zolo has him drive to some sort of military police compound where Zolo gathers men to find Joan, and Ralph takes down his own wanted poster as he's talking to Ira. And there's this very great physical comedy bit where he, hops up on this desk to retrieve this wanted poster and then falls down on the other side. And
it's pretty good.
I really did laugh at that. I thought that was very funny.
Danny DeVito's a very funny guy. Yeah. And the script is good too. And then one of my favorite scenes, still to this day, even though it's kind of rude, I don't know. Like, so Joan is like dragging her ridiculously oversized heavy suitcase, and he asks her like, "Hey, have you got anything useful in there? You got any valuables in there? You got any good pair of walking shoes?" And she's like, "No, I don't have any good walking shoes. They're all like these." And then Jack picks up her suitcase, and she thinks he's going to help her carry it, but instead he tosses it over the side of a ridge. And Joan starts to yell at him, but then she ends up falling down the same ridge and in the mudslide scene. And this was like my favorite scene when I was a kid. How can a kid not love a mudslide, right?
Yeah.
Like I love it was very cool to watch. It's a great action scene. And Jack like slides down after her, obviously, because now he wants his like money. So I got this information from AFI, the American Film Institute. So this is a quote. Quote, "The mudslide scene that portrays Joan and Jack falling down a steep mountain slope was filmed in 30-yard increments with a custom-built chute. Although the stuntmen were propelled through the slide with 150 gallons of water at speeds up to 30 miles per hour, they traveled only short distances in each shot before they landed in cargo nets at the base of the chute. These sequences were later edited together to make the slide appear much longer." So I'll include a link to that info also in the show notes. I thought that was interesting. And a lot of artistry went into like making that scene look so realistic. Because like when I was a kid, I thought, oh yeah, you can slide down hills in a mudslide. It's a good thing I didn't encounter any mudslides to try sliding.
Let's see, like I can fly like Superman and leap off the bed and hurt
Right?
yourself. You're like, there's some mud in this. I'm going for it. Oh dear. Here's another classic trope. Jack cuts off the heels of Joan's shoes and she goes, "These were Italian." And he goes, "Now they're practical."
It drives me crazy, as I mentioned when we did leap year, that anyone is traveling anywhere without a pair of walking shoes. Okay, like don't do it. We always bring walking shoes. In fact, wear them on the plane. Like I know the culture was different in the 80s because like there was still a little bit of that residue of like you dress up to get on the plane. Like when plane travel was first a thing, everybody dressed up, right?
Yeah.
And then like it's only been recently that people have started showing up in their pajamas. But like for me, it's like, balance comfort and style together, right?
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Yes.
And definitely have some shoes that you can like, walk distances in, because you never know you're probably not going to end up in the jungle, but you might end up like on a layover, like a really long layover. So, yeah.
Well, shoot. Yeah. So after Jack ruins Joan's shoes, Zolo and his men start shooting. They've found Jack and Joan.
And they have a lot of good character exposition in this section. Like they're having conversations while they're running. Like he finds out she's a romance novelist and there's this great chase into the jungle and a lot of like good dialogue. And like Jack's like, "What'd you do? Wake up this morning and say, 'Today I'm going to ruin a man's life.'" I don't know why, but I would quote that too when I was a kid, which is sort of vaguely misogynistic of my, 8-year-old self. But.
Well, and they get to this rickety bridge, a rope bridge, and Joan's like,
"Yeah, rope and wood, like
rope and wood."
And Jack says this is not passable. You cannot go on it. He's trying to do a shootout.
Well, he's like, "We can't go over this. No way." And she, this is her first inkling of getting some courage.
Yeah.
And she's just like, "I'm not going to sit around here." And she, gingerly makes her way across the bridge. And she starts to fall, and she's on a vine that is secured somewhere, and she swings across the rest of this she just ravine.
She grabs the vine because it's the only thing left to grab.
Yeah. And then Jack realizes what happened, and he grabs a vine and also swings across the ravine.
And he finds her on the other side, like drinking one of the mini alcohol bottles from her bag. And he's like, "You're drinking? I could have died, and you're drinking." And I love that she's just like, "I don't care." Like, he like.
Well, she just did this brave thing. She just was going to walk across the thing and then had to like swing across for her life. I might need a drink too. I mean.
Yeah, and she's also like, he didn't help me do this. I did this by myself. I'm going to have a drink. And then he takes the drink from her and also drinks. So, yeah, they're a good match.
And so they've gotten away a little bit, and now he's got some like machete type thing, and he's, hacking through the trees, and she's like, "Can't you go any faster?" Is that when she does this part and he gives her the machete, and so she kind of like, again, another like, taking control and like giving it a shot. She's got a big knife in her hand now, and she's whacking at trees, and she's chopping through trees, and then she turns around and there's a skull in her face, and she screams, and this part.
Yeah, and it's on a plane. It's
well,
like
wait.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Here she's screaming, and then terrified, and then Jack runs up, and she curls up into his chest, and his, he holds her for a minute. I thought that was really like, ooh.
That's funny. Ooh. I didn't even notice that part. Yeah,
I did because and his arm is, you see his muscle, and it's just very like strong man.
Oh yeah, and he was checking out her legs while like she was hacking through the underbrush as well. You see her checking out her leg. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So like the skull is hanging out of this plane that they find, and Jack lets her know this is this plane is a drug plane. This was a drug running plane, and they go into the plane, and this is kind of like they're getting to know each other sequence of the movie. It's one of my favorites because like it's a quiet, character parts with the two characters not in a lot of immediate danger. And it also gets stoned because Jack makes a fire by throwing a bunch of marijuana like into a place. I don't know how he made the fire, but he uses marijuana as fuel. So they're getting stoned and they're talking to each other. And in the course of this, he finds out about the treasure map. And Joan really doesn't want him to know about this because she doesn't want people getting involved and like screwing it up for her. And at one point, she's angry at him and yelling at him. And in the meantime, a snake is like behind her, squirming up behind her like a large snake. And he reaches out with the machete and chops the head off of the snake. And then I guess they end up eating the snake because he says it's delicious. Sorry. And this scene has so much because it's just like it's got that action element even in the quiet character moment. It's got your little snake thing. So I guess that is a sort of Raiders of the Lost Ark-esque thing, but the script was written before Raiders of the Lost Ark. And Jack also shares his dream, which is sailing away on a boat. And they're kind of bonding. But then Joan passes out from all the marijuana fire. And Jack takes the map out of her bag and checks it out. So you get this inkling that, like he might have ulterior motives going on.
Yeah, can we trust him?
Yeah.
We don't know. And then cut to Zolo meets up with his paramilitary guys. They drive by Ralph sleeping in the back seat of his little tiny car. And they're doing surveillance on the small town that Jack and Joan are walking into.
And then this is like one of the there's so many good scenes. This is also one of the best freaking scenes of the movie. Okay, so Jack and Joan are walking into this small town, and Jack says that these people kind of in a sotto voce says they're drug runners, and like Jack, like they're kind of the guys in the town start to kind of like harass them a little bit, and Jack is like trying to shoot his way out of the situation, but Joan stops him immediately, thank goodness, by being polite and asking to find a car. And these guys, these kind of tough looking guys, send them over to the bell maker, which Jack says is probably the boss of all the drug people. Then we have this great scene. So we have this great scene where Jack is trying to ask the bell maker whether they can use the car. And let's see how that goes for him and what the end result is.
Señor, buenos dias. Necesitamos uno.
What do you want, gringo?
Well, you speak English, that's great. We understand that you have a car. We would like to rent it or buy it. We have to get to a town.
What do you call this I'm living in? A pigsty?
No, this is lovely.
Hit the road.
Oh, amigo, you don't understand.
Hit the road.
Señor,
Vaya con Dios, gringo.
It's cool. It's cool. It's no problem. Vaya con Dios.
Oh.
Okay, Joan Wilder, write us out of this one.
John Wilder? John Wilder? The John Wilder? You are John Wilder, the novelist?
Yes, I am.
I read your books. I read all your books. Come in. Esta es Juanita Wilder, la que escribe las novelas que le leo los sábados. Juanita. Le damos la bienvenida, ¿verdad, muchachos?
Juanita, es Juanita.
Come in.
Adiós, amiga.
I can't believe you're here. John Wilder. Oh.
I love it. I
had to make myself not laugh because like I can see the scene in my head too, like the guys behind them who've walked up behind them with the guns and like they're like Juanita, they're so excited. They're about to shoot them and now they're like, oh, you're the best person ever.
I read all your books. Oh yes, fantastic. I love it too.
And I love this because it shows like, again, it's another example of like Joan showing power and showing like the power that she has because she is a writer and a romantic and like a woman, essentially, you know, like that Jack does not have with his kind of brute force. Like, although I respect for him speaking Spanish. So there you go.
I mean, well, also that it's these tough gun-toting drug dealers who are like all up into her novels, you know, her
yeah,
you're the greatest. So yeah, isn't this when after this Jack starts reading her novel? He's like, wow, yeah.
Juan, played by Alfonso Arau, gives him a copy as well of the novel, so that's another reason he can read it. And and we should say that Juan's house is like you walk inside these gates and it's this like super luxurious patio, and he's got alcohol and rock music and whatever, but he doesn't have a phone. He doesn't like phones apparently. And then meanwhile outside, you cut to outside, and Zolo and his men are in that small town and like harassing this like older woman and trying to be like, where are the Americans? Blah blah blah.
Yeah. So, okay, we're in a section where we can do spoilers.
Yeah, spoiler time. So get out now if you haven't seen it yet. It's not a very long movie. Go and watch it.
It's worthwhile.
So Juan does indeed have a car, although at first he calls it his little mule, so they don't think it's a car. But then there's a cut to a big like SUV Jeep, like super truck thing, like bursting out of the garage and like while Zolo and like surprising Zolo's men, and it has little mule written on it. And Juan also calls his car Pepe. And this is like a really great chase scene because like
it is.
It's like a super well choreographed chase scene, but then also like Juan's like it's comic too because Juan's like pointing out all the like the places in his village because he wants to get.
That was fantastic. He's like, you see this tree? My parents planted this tree. And like, do you see that shack? You know, that was my, you know, that was
that's where my mother was born or something.
My mother was born. He wants to show them his village while they're running away from.
Yeah, because he loves Joan so much. He wants to like show her everything. It's hilarious. I love it.
Yes, that cracked me up. I enjoyed that very much.
And I put this quote here just because, so at one point he said, this guy who's following you, he's very persistent. And the only reason I put that quote there is because this is the movie where I learned what persistent meant because I asked my mom.
Okay.
But it's like cool to remember, like, where did I learn this word? Because you don't remember that for a lot of words. And this movie had a lot of effect on me in many ways. And then like they get to this place where they think like, oh, how are we going to get away from Zolo and his men? And there's a river that doesn't have a bridge. And then Juan like presses some button in his Jeep and this like ramp shows up that he can drive over the ramp and like fly across the river. But then as soon as they're across the river, he pushes another button and it makes it into a wall so that Zolo's men crash into the wall and then into the river. And he calls it Lupe's escape. And so it's kind of a cool little thing, like, you know, maybe a Deus Ex Machina, but I don't know. I liked it. And then they drive up to like a mountainside or hillside overlooking a village or a small town. And at this point, Joan has let her hair down for the first time. Her hair is dry and loose and pretty. And she's in a field picking flowers, looking beautiful. And then also Juan says the words El Tenedor del Diablo to refer to this cactus. And that was a site on the treasure map that Jack had seen. So he is excited now because he wants to, you know, find this treasure.
Yeah. I love that scene where, you know, her hair's down and she's picking the flowers and one of her beautiful legs is sticking out from the slit of her skirt. And, you know, it was was kind of campy, but it was also just fantastic, and Jack is noticing her beautiful self. And anyway, yeah, I liked it.
And so then the town that they're overlooking, they drive into the town, and as they drive in, Ralph is on the phone with Ira, and the town around him is having a festival, and Ira's really mad at Ralph, but then like Joan and Jack just show up in the car with Juan at the perfect time, and Ralph's like, they're here. And so he's on the trail. And the small town here, like the best I could find out, it's probably a place in Mexico called Huasca de Ocampo, which is located in the Sierra de Pachuca Mountains in Hidalgo. And it is about an hour and 40 minutes from Mexico City. And it's promoted as a tourism destination because of its traditional houses, its old hacienda facilities. Haciendas were kind of like estates, and like they also like usually produce things like products. And there's also waterfalls and canyons in the area, and you can go horseback riding, hiking, rock climbing in that area. So if you wanted to see a site from Romancing the Stone, it seems like some of the filming was done there, and it's a great area. And I thought this was really funny. So like this is not anything to do with Romancing the Stone, but in that same area, there's a museum dedicated to goblins, which are called Duendes, the Museo de los Duendes. So, if nothing else, you can you can see some goblin museum as well. So big fun.
That's funny. Well, they're in a hotel room now.
Oh no, not in a hotel room yet. First, Joan pays him. Yeah,
where's she pay him at?
She pays
like
him
in the street
because they're about to she's like saying, well, there's one of those. I guess this is it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. She pays him, but Jack offers to buy her dinner, and he gets her clothes. And the dinner dance scene, and so she's in her room. She's gotten a shower, and she sees the beautiful clothes laid out, and
good job for Jack buying her clothes in her size that also look good.
Yeah, amazing. And so
that's a romance novel.
So she comes out of the inn, and this town festival is happening, and then he comes into the shot, and he's wearing this
like a white long sleeve shirt and white pants, and like
some kind of a embroidered sash belt thing, and
piping. Yeah, and it's so 80s. It's so 80s, but he kind of looks awesome. I don't know. I still think he looks handsome.
Yes, it's comical, and yet he can play it off. It's great.
Sylvester Stallone would not have been able to play off that outfit.
Not
in a million years.
You're right.
So in this scene, they're both looking at each other. They're both thinking each other's hot. But like my question watching it today is, how much is Jack actually falling for her, and how much is he after the treasure? Like, what do you think at this point?
I totally thought he was falling for her and didn't at all think he was thinking about the treasure.
Like when I first watched it, I didn't think that either. But now when I've watched it again, I'm trying to turn on my cynical mind a little bit more and be like, yeah, but he's still he had Xeroxed the map, and he's hiding things from her,
Yeah.
Because the scene where he's getting in the hotel room, he's also asking if there's a Xerox machine so he can Xerox the map. So yeah, but this is also a beautiful romantic scene. It's so weird. It's on the one hand, he could be conning her. On the other hand, they have this dance sequence with the beautiful Alan Silvestri music, which is so effective, and and like a perfect first kiss. Like I've never seen a better first kiss in it. Well, maybe Dirty Dancing, but other than that.
Yeah. But there you go. Dancing. I love it. I love falling in love in the dance floor scene. My favorite. Can't get enough of them.
Yeah.
But while they're dancing, they cut to Danny DeVito. He's crawling on the ground and under a table trying to reach her Joan's purse with the map in it. And then an older, quite big, Danny DeVito's a small guy to begin with, but this woman is double his size in every way, and she sees him and she starts beating him up, and I thought
because she thinks he's being a pervert. Like he's under her table. She thinks he's perving on her, so she's pissed off.
Great bit of comedy right there.
Yeah, and then after the kiss on the dance floor, so this cuts directly, after they kiss, it cuts directly to the hotel room, and they're lying naked together in bed. And I just want to say, this is the first time I thought about I had an idea of what sex might be, was this scene in this movie And I was like, oh. I was like, the people are naked and they're lying on top of each other. Okay. Like I didn't have much more sophisticated idea about it, but I was like, that's what you do. And like I have a very clear memory of that. Like that was like that image stuck with me. And while they're in bed together, like Joan agrees that they will look for the treasure together because Jack says that she will have more to bargain with if she has the treasure rather than just the map, which I think is not true. Like, I would not have gone for the treasure. I'm sorry. I would have been too cautious. Maybe that's a problem with me, but like, I would have been like, if they find out that you're screwing with them, what if they kill your sister? Like that would have been my mindset. What do you think?
Yeah, in real life, but because this is an adventure romance show, like, you know, she's feeling brave, you know, and she's a different person now. So she's like, you're right. Let's go find that treasure, you know. That's where I think her character is coming from, in that space and in this realm, in this story. But yeah, in real life it'd be like, I just need to get my sister back. But it's great that they go get it together. And then the next morning, they steal Ralph's car with him in it. Oh,
and they don't know it's Ralph. They just randomly find the one car with the person who
right, and he's sleeping in the back, so they don't see him. And I love how, but isn't this where Zolo's men start to come after them? And Jack is fiddling with some wires. She's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm going to hotwire," and she's like, "Just turn the key, like the keys in the ignition."
Yeah, while they escape in the car, you see one of Zolo's men watching with binoculars. They're everywhere. They're watching everywhere. And they see them driving away in the car towards where the treasure is. So then they're like fiddling around with the map, and at first like Jack's like, "Well, I don't recognize any of this." They're like, "Oh, this stuff isn't here." And Jack's like, "Oh, landmarks change." And then all of a sudden Joan folds the map a certain way so that a heart forms and a waterfall forms, and you can see the place where it is. Like she has figured out how to put the map together so that you can find the treasure, which is awesome. And then they go into the cavern where the treasure is hidden, and Jack translates leche de la madre, which is mother's milk, and they see this like milky white water pouring from the ceiling, and they start digging in that water.
And they pull out a little statuette thing, and you ask a very good question. How ancient could this treasure be inside that particular statue?
Yeah, it looks like it's from the 1950s, maybe, right?
Yeah. And I love that. And Jack's like, this is what's going on here. But I love this bit too. She's like, oh, from one of my novels, I hid the treasure in the statue.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yes, that's so Murder, She Wrote. That's so classic. Well, when I was doing research for my story, and that's how they solve the crime or what have you. And so they crack it open, and there's this beautiful emerald.
And then there's this really good line where she's like, "I can't believe I'm here digging for treasure with you." Like, and she says, "Jack, you're the best time I've ever had." And he said, "I've never been anybody's best time before." So that was a sweet line.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Sure. And then just as, you know, all that beautiful dialogue happens and they found the treasure, they're ready to go. Ralph holds them up at gunpoint because don't forget, he was sleeping in the back of the car. And he goes, "I'm stealing this stone. I'm not trying to romance out from under her," looking at Jack while he said, you know, and she's like, you know, Joan's like, "What?" And then so they give it to him, right?
Yeah, because otherwise they'll be dead. And then like Zolo's dudes show up, and Ralph runs off because and there's another big chase scene. We've got so many, and there's Mounties in this chase scene too. There's cars, there's horses, there's Ralph on foot with a shopping bag. It's mayhem.
Shopping bag.
And then Drone's driving this car, and she makes this odd decision to drive it into a river full of rapids. And she's still trying to steer the car when it's in the rapids, which is hilarious. And then they come to the edge of a freaking waterfall. And so this stunt is like so well done. Like I was really curious about how it was done. And AFI had a quote about how it was done. We'll put a link to where you can find this information. So I'm going to read the whole explanation again from the quote. Quote, "The special effects crew who backpacked equipment to the location spent an additional 5 days to set up the shot. building a wooded ramp at the mouth of the waterfall in an area that was not visible to the camera. A stunt car filled with styrofoam and inner tubes was released off the waterfall as stuntmen who were standing outside the vehicle on foot rails jumped in unison. The camera lens compressed the image, conveying the impression that the stuntmen were close to the car while they were actually 30 feet away. And yeah, I don't completely understand it still from that explanation, but it sounds like
same.
very involved.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. And so I couldn't find for sure the location, but some sources said that it was probably Rio Antigua near Veracruz, Mexico, where some of the other scenes in the movie were filmed. And interestingly, you can book rafting trips of varying difficulty on this river. So, and in the fall and the spring, the Puente Nacional section has the largest hawk migration in the world. And so another place, if you wanted to get a little piece of Romancing the Stone adventure, I looked at some shots of this river and it looks very similar. So, and whether or not it is, it's still you're rafting and, you're rafting in a cool location. So I'm going to leave in the show notes a link to some rafting trip information too.
Thank you, Jen. So Joan and Jack end up on opposite sides of the river, and Jack promises to meet her in Cartagena. But she's feeling cynical,
Yeah, she's got the map and he's got the stone at this point.
Yeah. And all she needs to deliver is the map. So
yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, Joan enters Cartagena looking a mess. And you ask a very good question. How does she still have her bag?
Yeah, she jumped off a waterfall, man. She's committed to keeping that bag.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you've got your passport and you've lost everything else, well, all I could think about is like, thank God, like if you had a cell phone, it'd be ruined by now. Like,
oh yeah,
I guess it's that was my thought. So she calls Ira and they make a plan to meet at a fort, some kind of military fort.
So as she arrives by water taxi to the fort that same night, there's a rainless thunderstorm because, of course, it has to be menacing, but rain would be inconvenient. And the fort where this is filmed, this is for sure the Fort of San Juan de Ulua in Veracruz, Mexico. And you can, in fact, visit this fort. It consists of various fortresses and prisons, as well as a former palace, and it was built between 1535 and 1769. Today, it's a museum. The tickets did seem to be pretty expensive from what I could find out, like about $40 a ticket, but you can also see it on different tours. So, but if you're like a big fan or you just like seeing impressive sights, it might be worth checking this fort out.
So the map exchange happens and Elaine is released to Joan. So that's with Ira, right?
Yeah. Ira does the map exchange with them.
Ira does the map exchange. Bad guy number 1. But then bad guy number 2, Zolo, arrives with Jack and Ralph, and Zolo demands to see the stone.
And he cuts Joan's hand, because he knows that like the map is worthless and that they already have the stone. And he wants to know where it is. So he cuts Joan's hand, holds her bleeding hand over the crocodile/alligator pit. But Jack is very slow to reveal where the stone is. Okay, like I'm like, I didn't notice this when I was younger, and I was just like, "Oh, Jack is so dreamy." But now I'm like, I don't know. And he's apparently been hiding it in his crotch, which is discovered when one of Zolo's men like bangs him in the crotch, and there's like a clanging noise. And after he slides the stone down his pants and off onto his foot, he then kicks the stone over to Zolo and says, "Choke on it." Like, really good kick, because Zolo manages to catch it in his hand. So Zolo's so happy he has a stone in his hand over this alligator pit. And then, of course, the crocodile/alligator comes up and bites his hand off. And he's fucking screaming. Okay, one question here. Why would they have not have strip searched Jack in the fucking first place?
Many...
I just noticed this. I only just noticed this plot hole doing the podcast. Okay, anyway.
Yeah.
Watching the movie, it didn't bother me. Did it bother you? Did you find any of this improbable?
It had been such a long time since I'd seen the film that it was almost like watching it all over again. And so I was just into it. Okay. I didn't, I mean, for instance, like this hand being bitten off. I mean, it was the effect or the stunt is so cheesy and terrible. Like that's the stuff that stuck out to me. And I thought of Peter Pan immediately.
Oh yeah, definitely. So yeah, Zolo's got his hand bit off, and then
Joan grabs his knife and then runs off with Elaine. Jack grabs a gun, and there's a big gunfight.
Yeah, I don't even know who all's involved in this gunfight. There might be some of Ralph and Ira's men too. I don't know what's going on. There's a lot of people.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's kind of surrounded by every bad person.
And Zolo is somehow still okay, like still able to walk around.
Yeah. And Ira, of course, abandons Ralph. He's so not loyal.
He goes off on a boat, and Ralph's like, "Wait, I'm your cousin."
I know, they leave him behind.
So the gunfight part appears to have mostly ended. Like maybe they all shot each other. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then at this point, it's just Zolo going after Elaine and Joan. And I think he's just really basically out for vengeance because the crocodile already fucked off with the stone. So Jack is trying to catch the crocodile that presumably has the stone, which is trying to like swim into the ocean. And at the same time, Zolo asks Joan, "How will you die, Joan Wilder? Like quick like this?" Or he uses the same line that Grogan did in her book in the beginning of the movie. So a similar line. And Joan tries the same technique that her character did, where she tries to throw a knife at him and he catches it on this piece of wood instead. So it doesn't really work.
Yeah, like all of a sudden he has this like piece of driftwood that he, quickly gets into his face and it sticks there. And I'm like, oh my God, like it was.
But it's also
really
unlikely
silly.
she'd be able to like kill somebody with a knife on her first try. Like, let's be honest.
True. Okay. True. But yeah.
And then and like he's at least a trained paramilitary dude. Like there's a chance he'd be really good at this shit. And then like Elaine faints, like she just faints right off. So Joan's like left alone with Zolo, the one-handed man, and she's calling for Jack, who's down trying to deal with this crocodile, but he's not coming yet. He's trying to reach his gun, but he's really committed to keeping this crocodile.
Yeah.
And then eventually he decides to give up the alligator to try to help Joan. And he freaking scales a stone wall. Yep.
That was awesome.
But I love this. I love that Joan saves herself. So Zolo's got this like cigar in his mouth.
Yeah.
Like why? I don't know. She takes the cigar, she turns it around, and she freaking burns him with it. He's screaming. While he's screaming, she hits him in the hand, the stump hand with the wood, and that fucks him up. And then he falls backwards into a fire that's just randomly burning there. Yeah. And then he's on fire, and then he falls into an alligator pit just for good measure.
Yep. I love it. Yeah, she saves herself, and then Jack shows up.
Yeah,
already won. It's like, don't need you.
But that is a great death scene. I don't even think I'd ever appreciated that before until just now. I'm just like, that is a lot of ways to be hurt at once.
Yeah, she gets him. I love it. Man. Hits the wound, and he falls, and and he was going to feed her to the crocodile alligator, but that's how he goes. That's right.
Yep.
The alligator crocodile.
So Jack and Joan have this embrace, and I think they might kiss, they might just hug. And Elaine they wake Elaine up, and Jack is instructing them to go to the American consulate, etc. She's like, "You're leaving?" And like, oh, I love this line. This might be my favorite line. So he's on his way to leave, and he says, "You're gonna be all right, Joan Wilder." Yeah. And then he kisses her. "You always were." I love that line. Okay, even though he's kind of being like an asshole in a way by leaving her, but still I love that line because it's like, yeah, you are going to be all right. You were always right. Like you're awesome, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you feel a similar affection to that line?
Yeah. Yeah. Because it does everything perfect. It does everything perfect.
And so he jumps off the wall, the fort wall, into the water. And Joan is watching him and touching this necklace he gave her. Yeah, we forgot to mention he gave her a necklace, a heart necklace, while they were at the dancing thing. And she's watching him sort of like in a melancholy way. And that fades into her, stroking the necklace in the window in New York as Gloria finishes reading her book. And Gloria's like, "This is the best book ever. Oh my God." And like, "You're a world-class, hopeless romantic." And then Joan says, "Hopeful romantic. Hopeful romantic."
Yeah. And then Joan walks home and she avoids the vendors, which in the beginning, I felt like she was just like flustered by those guys. And this time she's like, hey, dudes, whatevs. And, walks herself back to her apartment with her
and
groceries.
she's got the pretty hair too. She's got the pretty hair now. Like, yeah.
Yep. Hair's down and she's walking home, turns the corner and sees Jack's boat.
Which is named Angelina.
Is named Angelina. And he's waiting for her in front of her building. She climbs up, bringing only the flowers.
I put that in because my mom at the time, I remember her saying, why didn't she bring the food? She's so practical. Awesome. My mom's like, why would you bring the flowers and not the food?
That's funny. Bring that bread and cheese. You're going to need that. That's funny. And then as she climbs up, the first thing you see, Jack puts his foot up and it's crocodile boots or, crocodile skin or alligator skin. Yeah. And they drive off together. Okay, down this street. And all I could think about was like, I don't know if you could do that in New York City anymore. Like the way that they blocked off all this traffic to do this very long shot of this this ship, this big boat, this big sailboat on like some kind of trailer driving down the city. I'm like, holy cow. I don't That was what I was thinking.
And I was talking to Serena about this, and she wanted to point out, like, just for boat-wise, that the boat would have not had its sail up. It would have been, like, packed like in a little bit more if you were transporting it. So she wasn't able to join us because we had to reschedule, but I just wanted to put that in from Serena.
I think that's a very good point. See, what do I know about boats? And I
want to know I want to know who's driving the boat. Has Jack got, like, a butler now? Because he's up there kissing her. This beautiful romantic scene, mind you. Like, I never noticed this when I was a kid, but who's driving it?
Who's driving it?
And what about her cat? Maybe what's going to happen is they're going to drive like 5 blocks and she's going to be like, oh, wait a minute, Jack. I have to find a cat sitter for Romeo.
I know. Yeah. They made such a point of it at the beginning and now she just leaves the cat.
Well, to be fair, it wouldn't be a very romantic ending if she's like, just wait a minute. I have to get my cat.
I know. Know. So that means like we know that with the boots, the implication is that he got that stone back.
Yeah. Important to remember. Yeah.
Important to remember. He got the stone. Either he sold it because he was able to get that boat. Like
he says that the crocodile died in his arms of like indigestion.
Oh, right.
And then she's like, if I were to die, there's no place I'd rather be.
Oh, what a line. Fantastic.
Yeah. And then the end credits music.
Satisfying.
I love the end credits music. Dun, 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 dun. I love it. Dun, 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 I just want... Dun, 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 dun. Sorry. Okay.
That's okay. I think we should do a whole little separate podcast. Jen does the music.
No.
The dun-dun-duns of the theme song.
No.
So that's a little extra.
That brings us to the end of the film. And anything else to say about the story or plot before we're going to talk a little bit more about themes, but anything else you want to add before we
It was just so enjoyable. And I kind of went in with low expectations, feeling like it was going to be dated. And, every other rom-com has used what's in this one. In fact, I'm a little like extra pissed off with Leap Year. I'm like, I think it was just ripped off. Ripped off, not inspired by, ripped off all of those.
Well, they gave them backstories and emotions, and a bride got hit in the head with a shoe. I don't know.
Weird.
I'm sorry. Okay. So because I wanted to give a little respect to Colombia because this movie was filmed in Mexico, so we haven't talked about any Cartagena locations. So I'll just give a little background because Cartagena also turns out to be a really cool place to visit. You won't see sets from the movie there, but Cartagena was founded in 1533 and it was a main Spanish trading port. And it is currently the capital of the Bolivar Department of Colombia. Its population is just over 1 million people, and it is the 5th largest city in Colombia. And interestingly, in 1984, the same year this movie came out, the colonial walled city and fortress of Cartagena was designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So that's pretty cool. And there have been inhabitants in the area of Cartagena as early as 4000 BC. So there have been indigenous people of the Puerto Hormiga culture, and they found a lot of really cool ancient artifacts in the area. And I'm not doing the whole history of Colombia this time because, quite frankly, I've just been feeling a little ill the last few weeks, so haven't had time. So I just wanted to, though, talk about some Cartagena travel sites and tips that I learned from some research. So you definitely want to visit, if you go to Cartagena, the walled city and Old Town. And people seem to either love it or hate it. They love it for the cobblestones, cathedrals, murals, music, and food, or they hate it because there's a lot of street vendors and scammers and potholes. So, you gotta, when you look at the reviews, that's kind of what it boils down to. It seems to be a lot of 5-star and 1-star. Another interesting place is the Castillo de San Felipe de Barajas, which is a castle built by the Spanish for defense starting in 1536 and developed over the years. It has a lot of interesting tunnels, apparently, and only some of them are open to visitors because it hasn't been completely upkept. But it seems to be really cheap to visit, like less than $5 a ticket, according to Frommers. So that could be a cool place to visit. Apparently, it's a very important castle, like if you want to visit, South American castles. And another area to visit is Barrio Getsemani. It's a cool neighborhood with a lot of murals, cute cafes, and music. A park that you might want to go to, Plaza de Bolivar, has a lot of green space, and a lot of dancers will show up and put on little performances. And then this one is very relevant to Romance in the Stone, even though the film was not made there. Caribe Jewelry Museum and Factory is so they've got a museum, factory, and a store. I think they might be in 3 different locations, though. But they specialize in emeralds, including rare emeralds. So in their museum, they have the largest vein ever found in Colombia. And they also have a replica of an emerald mine, so you can see what it's like to mine emeralds.
Ooh.
And I think the museum part is in the Old City next to the Gold Museum. So there you go, Sophia. And I think they also have a thing where you can like make your own like emerald jewelry program thing. So kind of cool stuff. And there's, of course, Cartagena is a coastal city. So there's beaches, Punta Arena Beach. There's a option to book with a beach club while you're there so you can avoid vendors. La Boquilla Beach, which is away from the tourist areas and near a lot of restaurants and kiosks. And Playa Blanca in Baru, which is 40 minutes away by boat, but apparently has really beautiful water. And then I was really interested in these foods to try, even though as a vegan, again, I can barely eat any of them. I'm sure there's wonderful Colombian vegan food too, though. But there's arepa de huevo, which is a corn patty fried with egg inside. Does that sound good? Seafood ceviche, seafood with lime juice, onions, cilantro. Fish soup, I would not eat that. There's a whole fish in it, like with its head. Yuca and sweet plantain. Shaved ice with condensed milk and syrup, local candies, and I would totally eat this. Sour mango with lime juice, salt, and pepper. So it's like fresh mango, but they treat it with. In fact, I could make that. I should just make that sometime. And coconut rice with shrimp. So it looks like Colombia is a great place to like enjoy food and music and like just like looking at the ambiance of the old architecture and going to the beach. So, there are some travel advisories for Colombia, but a lot of them don't apply to Cartagena. But they do. The U.S. Department of State does say not to go there due to COVID-19 right now. Certain areas of Colombia also come with risk of crime, terrorism, and kidnapping. But Cartagena, the department Cartagena is in, is not on the high risk list. But people recommend that you book your lodging ahead of time, make sure it's in a safe location. And while you're there, obviously, like protect your belongings, don't flash money around, and just like kind of read up about like what are some common scams or that people will run on tourists ahead of time, just so you're prepared. And that advice applies to wherever you're going. If you're going to Paris, same thing applies. So that's a little bit about Cartagena. And then I just wanted to say I'm surprised there's less there. I'm surprised there is not as much criticism of the movie as I expected, right? Because if you're watching this movie, there's this kind of a stereotypical portrayal of Colombia as like full of drug dealers and villains and like guys with evil mustaches. And like there actually weren't very many articles about it, and maybe it's because it's older. I don't know. What do you think?
That would make sense. Perhaps people were less concerned about stereotypes, and
certainly in the 80s. The 80s is like stereotype land, right? Like
yeah.
And actually for an 80s movie, I think this is like actually better than a lot of 80s movies in that regard, especially because I looked up Colombia in the 80s was actually very dangerous at the time. They actually decided not to film there because there had been recent kidnappings of Americans, and that's why they moved the shooting to Mexico. So it's like, on the one hand, it is portraying, only Colombia kind of in a bad light, but on the other hand, it was very dangerous at the time. Like, I guess in the 80s, there was a lot of production and sale of cocaine and marijuana. There's the drug war going on. There were kidnappings for ransom. There was theft. The government had a lot of corruption problems. Police and military officials were corrupt in many cases. And there were vigilante groups, which some of them were for self-defense. Some of them were paramilitary organizations. Some of them were trained by the military and had government approval. And I read this, and this is wild. So in 1984, the Minister of Justice was assassinated by people related to the drug trade. And in 1985, guerrillas entered the Palace of Justice and took hostages. And when the building was raided by the military, 100 people were killed, including half of the Supreme Court justices.
Whoa.
So, and by the late 80s, homicide was the country's leading cause of death, and 1989 was the most violent year. So, like, on the one hand, like, you don't want to have stereotypical portrayals. On the other hand, this might not have been a stereotype in the context within which it was situated, which is her being in the middle of nowhere, being pursued by people who are after a map, right? So like, she probably would run into a lot of like villains because of her story.
And like, what do you do is like that little old lady on the side of the road who's just minding her own business and like being a kid growing up around here. What about all the rest of that population who's just trying to have a life, work, a family, go to school,
And I also do like, though, that they portrayed Juan, and his guys as like being into romance novels, and like, as long as you approach them the right way and you happen to be a romance novelist.
Right.
Pretty fun guys.
You're good to go. Yeah. Golly.
Anyway, like, I don't know. I would deal more with criticism of the movie, except that like there isn't a lot of it out there, to be honest. And like, I think for the 80s, it did a good job as in general. Do you want to talk any more about romance novels? And
I had put a little bit in. I think we talked about it, like her life versus, the fantasy, and how her, story gives her some strength throughout the whole thing. And people poo-poo romance novels, but I have a link to an article from Entertainment Weekly. As of 2014, sales of romance novels in all their permutations exceed 1 billion annually in the US. That is a lot. It is a huge fat genre that has different, there's paranormal, there's sci-fi, there's Western, there's, Regency's huge, all these different subgenres, and it makes a lot of money. People love them. And I could recommend one of my favorite websites. It's called Smart Bitches Trashy Novels. It's reviews on all kinds of novels, romance novels, and they have a great podcast as well.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, be sure to put that in the outline at some point so we can put it in the show notes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And so one question I had was, and I think for you, it seems he has, like, does Jack hold up still as a rom-com hero? Like, I think when I was a kid, I had no complaints about Jack. I was just like, yes, he's the best. He's this mysterious, action-oriented man. He's hot. He's a good dancer. He buys her the cool clothes. Like, I just love Jack. And now I'm like, he was lying to her for half the movie. And he fucked off on her. And he just shows up in a boat and expects her to be ready to go. So I don't know. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I hear you. Like in real life, probably not, but in just like suspension of belief and all that, like I can forgive it, I can go with it. But like in real life, I probably would not have trusted this person, long term. Maybe to help get me to like a town, but then after that, I would have been like, oh, bye-bye. And no, I would not have had dinner. And no, I would, you know what I'm saying?
I would have. I especially when I was younger, but probably still. I go for the scoundrel archetype sometimes. Like, so Jack Colton was like one of my first movie crushes. Like, maybe not the first because I think Han Solo is around the same time, but it's also scoundrel, right?
Yeah.
And then Indiana Jones, I had a crush on him, scoundrel. So when I was young, maybe there were just a lot of them in the 80s, these scoundrel men, but I was into the scoundrel archetype.
Yeah. I mean, I think like, gosh, there's definitely a part of me that would be like, just go for it. And then, but my sensible part would, would win every time. And then I would be like safe back in America and in my own life and been like, damn it, Soph, you just should have gone.
Or Zolo would have captured you. We don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I would have made it back.
Yeah. Anyway, did you have any early movie crushes? I know that's not like we're kind of going off a little bit, but like
I remember TV crushes, Kirk Cameron from Growing Pains, Michael J. Fox, and
Family Ties or Back to the Future?
Family Ties. I think I had some of those posters up on my wall, and definitely Johnny Depp from 21 Jump Street days.
Yeah, we had different tastes. Yeah. I like those guys, but we had different tastes. But that's cool.
But I can't remember all together. I think I dreamt about Johnny Depp a lot. Yeah.
Okay, so what would happen to Joan and Jack? We're going to ignore the fact that a sequel exists right now. What do you think would happen to these two? He arrives in the boat. They get on the boat. What now?
I don't know. I guess why not? Would she keep writing though? Only because I feel like we know that takes a lot of like, I need to sit down. I need to kind of hole up. But can she?
I think she loves writing. I think she would find a way to write. But
yeah.
I think it's her vocation, so she'd find a way. But yeah, the boat would be very inconvenient, no doubt.
Yeah, and like, what
Serena podcasts on a boat?
She does. She does. Oh man, we need to maybe like ask later on for her to put some input. What's life like on a boat? Because what does he do now that he's got this boat? I mean, does he do anything? And
yes. Oh, you haven't seen the Jewel of the Nile, so the Jewel of the Nile answers some of these questions. I will not spoil the results. And honestly, I don't recommend that you watch the Jewel of the Nile, listeners, because if you've avoided it, just keep avoiding it. Okay. So if you haven't seen the Jewel of the Nile, just watch the Billy Ocean video. When the going gets tough, the tough gets going. You will get nice scenes from the movie without having the movie be disappointing to you, and you get a good song out of it, and you get Kathleen Turner, Michael Douglas, and Danny DeVito singing backup vocals for Billy Ocean.
It's awesome.
So it's that all that you really need is there, because the Jewel of the Nile is, to my opinion, one of the worst sequels of all time. Okay, like everything that's bad about Romancing the Stone, like in terms of stereotypes, is like heightened in this movie. Like there's so many different cultures that are stereotyped by this movie. It takes place in the Middle East and Africa, and it's just like okay. And as I mentioned, the song is good. It's got a good song, and like it's got like Michael Douglas, Kathleen Turner, and Danny DeVito are all there, and that's great. They still have great acting chemistry, but the script, as we mentioned much earlier in the podcast, was written by men, and you can fucking tell. Okay, no offense to men, okay, because some men write women very well. But some men write women as like dumb or shrinking violets or damsels in distress. And she gets so dumb. Like she learned so much in Romancing the Stone. And it's like she's lost all her brain cells in this movie. Okay. She keeps doing dumb shit.
Oh man. That's disappointing.
Like, there's not a lot of attention given to like her as a character. It's much more get to this plot point, get to that plot point. And it also does deal though with like the themes of like, what would life be like between them when she's trying to be a writer? And what would he be doing? So it does answer some of those questions. I just don't know if I love the answers.
Okay.
And audiences seem to have agreed because it was not successful. And I bet Diane Thomas could have written a hell of a sequel, if she'd had a hand at it. But I guess she was on to bigger and better things until she passed away. So, yeah. Okay, anything else at all you want to talk about the movie before we go on to double feature ideas?
Just that it was a delight and should be watched.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to do double feature ideas, and we'll mention Serena's at the end too, just so you get to know what she wanted to do. So I'm choosing all 80s movies for my double feature ideas because it's such an 80s movie, Romancing the Stone. I just feel like you should watch it with something else from the 80s. So my first pick is Peggy Sue Got Married from 1986, where you get another Kathleen Turner rom-com, and also with Nicolas Cage. And I think they were great together in that movie. And check it out. It's a movie about a woman kind of like wondering if she should have lived her life differently, and it involves some time travel.
And I'd also like to note that was directed by Francis Ford Coppola, and Sophia Coppola plays Peggy's little sister. In that she's young, very young. So, let's see. Okay, I went with more of like films about writers, because that first scene that's what stuck with me over the years. So one of my first recommendations is Bright Star. Directed by Jane Campion, and it's about John Keats and his romance with Fanny Braun. And I think it's so beautiful, visually beautiful, and they're in the poetry. And you get a snippet of how writers, what they do to get the creative juices flowing and stuff like that. And so there's that.
So my second pick I've already mentioned while we were talking, Dirty Dancing from 1987. So if Romancing the Stone was part 1 of my sexual awakening through movies, Dirty Dancing was part 2, okay? Because, it is one of those movies I remember from being a kid where I'm like, this is what happens between adults. This is romance. This is love. And if you haven't seen Dirty Dancing, what are you doing? Okay? Like, it sounds like it might be a dumb movie from the title, but it is not a dumb movie. It is also written by a woman, great writer, and the dialogue is amazing. The plotting is amazing. It's another one of those perfect 80s movies. In fact, in my opinion, and this is maybe going to be controversial to some people, I think Dirty Dancing is one of the most perfect movies ever made. I cannot find a flaw in it. I cannot find a scene out of place. So, there you go. Check it out, especially if you're a guy and you're like, oh, I don't like those kind of movies. Freaking watch it. It's awesome. Dirty Dancing, 1987.
I will just second your recommendation there. It's so great. And that one I've seen a million times. So, okay. Again, another writerly kind of film adaptation gives you a little bit of that about a writer's creative process and what's going on in their head versus what's real. And it's a quirky, strange, in a great way film. So
nice.
There's that one.
And I just realized my third recommendation. So my third recommendation is from 1985. Romancing the Stone's from 1984. So you could do a film, and then the other two are from 86 and 87. So I think you should just do a film festival and do all my recommendations. Start with Romancing the Stone, then go to The Goonies from 1985. And this is in some ways like oddly, like almost like a kid's version of Romancing the Stone, because there's treasure maps, treasure hunts, there are comedic villains, and there's teen romance. So there's also romance in this movie. I mean, it's obviously very different in a lot of ways. It's like kids who are kind of from the wrong side of the tracks trying to save their neighborhood from being like developed by these like evil rich developers, but by finding this treasure. But this, like, if you grew up in the 80s as a kid, you watched this movie and you loved this movie. So I really recommend it. So yeah, here's my new lineup. First you watch Romancing the Stone, then you watch The Goonies, then you watch Peggy Sue Got Married, then you watch Dirty Dancing. You've got a beautiful 1980s festival right there.
Perfect, Jen. It's perfect. And then my last recommendation is the Kaminsky Method. I started watching it, and just to see Michael Douglas, still rocking it.
Yeah, I did too. So we've been watching it together without knowing it.
It's great. Highly enjoyable. And I love all the theatery stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. So
he plays like an actor who has like a acting class.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Alan Arkin is hilarious. Oh my God.
So great. I love him so much. He's just awesome.
Yeah, and as we previously mentioned, they bring up Danny DeVito shows up. Have you seen the parts where Danny DeVito and Kathleen Turner show up yet?
No, I haven't.
Oh,
I can't wait.
I spoiled it for you. I'm so sorry.
No, I knew that they showed up, but I didn't know and that's fine. I don't,
Okay.
for
cool,
characterization and whatever. It doesn't ruin it for me.
And then we want to give a shout out to Serena, our host, who couldn't be here because we had to reschedule. But her double feature recommendations were Raiders of the Lost Ark, which has, of course, wrongly been called an inspiration for Romancing the Stone. But I think it would make a damn good double feature with it. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure.
She recommends watching The Jewel of the Nile, which I caution you against, but at your own risk.
Mm-hmm.
And she also recommends Fatal Attraction, which of course is a famous Michael Douglas movie of the era with Glenn Close, which is a great movie, but very, have you seen it?
No.
Very dark, very dark. It's like Michael Douglas is having an affair with Glenn Close, and then she kind of goes like nuts when he tries to end it.
Yeah.
Man. Okay.
I mean, I know that, and she does
don't spoil
bad things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, those are double features.
So, friends, we hope you've enjoyed the show today. And remember, feel free to send us feedback at everyromcom.com. And if you like the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts.
And please join us over the next few weeks as we finish the travel series with Richard Linklater's Before series, first with a trip to Vienna for Before Sunrise. So see you next time.
Have a great week.